Guys, I think it is really bad news, but I think there is a slight chance that Putin might win in this war. But I do not mean like a victory on the battlefield or like total surrender of Ukraine. No, obviously nothing like this. It is more related to that the West will just simply get tired to support Ukraine. Zelensky will be forced to talk with Russia and maybe even surrender some territories in exchange for peace. Maybe he will be even given NATO memberships or European Union memberships, something like this. And in the meantime, while all this whole thing is going, Putin will just keep mobilizing people year after year after year with absolutely no regards to human life, and surprisingly still avoiding protests. And you guys, you already know how much I support Ukraine, and I truly believe in its ultimate victory. It is just that no one believed that Putin, including me, that he will be ready to actually sacrifice millions of his people, how much he hates common Russian people. The value of life for him is literally close to zero, and all of this is for him just not to acknowledge his mistake and say, sorry guys, I messed up, let's finish this war. And so in this video, let me tell you exactly what made me think in this way, with all the supporting arguments. And in the very end, I will tell you my vision for the best case scenario for Ukraine out of this situation. And for this reason, please keep watching this video until the very end, and I'll be extremely curious to see whether you agree with what I'm about to say or not. And so yes, the very first fact I'm referring to in my video to support my vision was this article by the Commander-in-Chief of Ukrainian forces approximately a month ago, Valery Zaluzhny, who was saying that the situation kinda reached the dead end, even though later he refuted his own words and he was saying that this article was about how to get rid of this dead-end situation and for Ukraine how to continue pushing. But basically the very first idea everyone received is that yes, Ukrainian-Russian war reached the point of no return, of the complete stalemate, the trench warfare, so-called by Valery Zaluzhny, and he was mentioning that in the entire month Ukraine was only able to liberate approximately 17 square kilometers of its land, and Russians in the beginning of this year, since the beginning of this year, lost approximately 150,000 soldiers, bringing the total number as of the moment of making this video to be more than 300,000. And he's basically saying that this is absolutely unbelievable. No one expected to see such big sacrifice by Russians. No one expected Putin to go this far. This is absolutely ridiculous how much he hates his common people and how much of a zero the value of human life is for him. He was also mentioning that during the temporary stalemate in the beginning of this year, Russians heavily mined all the front lines, which was incredibly difficult for Ukrainians to pass and demine. And then he was also mentioning the situation in Avdiivka, where Russians attempted several offensives, lost several thousand people, and barely even advanced. He was also referring to the support by the West, which according to him is just enough for Ukraine not to lose in this war, but it is not enough to win in this war. I hope I translated his point clear to you. Guys, he's not complaining that he is not ungrateful that the West sends weapons to Ukraine, he's just basically saying that it looks like the West is not that interested in Ukraine winning as soon as possible. And even those F-16 fighter jets which Ukraine was promised a long time ago, it just took absolutely enormous period of time for them to start arriving, or for Ukrainian pilots to even start training, that by that time Russians already modified their air defense systems S-400s to intercept these above-mentioned fighter jets, reducing significantly their potential impact. And then Valery Zaluzhny mentioned that right now the war is at risk at transitioning into trench warfare, which basically just soldiers sitting in their trenches, almost doing nothing every day, couple of artillery attacks, couple of potential advancements attempts, but nothing more than that. Basically a complete stalemate for several years. And this war, it will be a very big risk for Ukraine, because the population of Russia is much greater, and Putin is ready to sacrifice way more soldiers than Zelensky. That is why this war will be on exhaustion. And once again, unfortunately, Putin has a little bit more chances here. That is why Valery Zaluzhny, in the end of his article, he was referring to the innovative and quick method that Ukraine must find as soon as possible to end war before it is too late. And even the British intelligence report from the beginning of November kinda indirectly confirmed these statements by Valery Zaluzhny, basically claiming that neither of the sides can advance significantly right now because the front line is spread so thin. At the moment of recording once again this video, there are attempts to advance in Zaporozhye, in Donetsk, in Luhansk, next to Kupiansk, Svatove, Kreminna, next to Rabotny, Velika Novosilka, and obviously Kherson. And everywhere Ukrainians try to advance and at the same time protect against Russians, and Russians do exactly the same. That is why in not a single particular point there is a bigger concentration of either Russians or Ukrainians, which will be enough to breach the line of defenses of either of the sides. And ultimately, another article by the Institute for the Study of War came out in support of Zaluzhny's explanation that his original statement was not about the stalemate, but rather how to find a new tactic for Ukrainians to evade this temporarily slowdown. But still, this was way more than enough for the Western countries and military analytics to kinda realize that Ukraine looks like it's having a pretty bad time. Some articles were even claiming that current situation in Ukraine in November of 2023 is much worse than in November 2022. Because if you remember, exactly 1 year ago, this is when Ukrainians were able to liberate a big chunk of Kherson region. And right now, we do not see, unfortunately, that much advancement at all. And that is why these above-mentioned Western articles, they're kinda urging its readers, mainly people from the West and even some other Ukrainian supporters around the world, to kinda rethink what will victory for Ukraine means. Because 1 year ago it was the total deoccupation of its lands, and right now it might be something more like forcing Zelensky to talk, the ceasefire, and maybe Russia keeps, unfortunately, some lands in exchange for peace in the Eastern Europe. And so as you can see, all these statements, ideas and articles that the West publishers started publishing recently, they play unfortunately in favor of Russia and the regime of Putin. Because this is exactly what he wants. This looks like his plan all along, to either do this war extremely quickly and do some kind of a blitzkrieg, or in case it fails, then just slow down so much, so significantly, exhaust Ukraine, exhaust the Western partners, so that eventually they start giving up on Ukraine, force Zelensky to talk, and making Putin get what he wants. And even some Ukrainian authorities, they mentioned that this war transitioned already in the stage of a so-called marathon, not a sprint. And basically the one who will survive in the end is the one who can reach the finish line of this marathon, which as you can see is not that easy, especially if you waste a lot of your energy in the beginning. There were even some claims in the early November that the West already initiated some kind of research and military talks with the representatives of Ukrainian government, potentially even with the President Zelensky himself, that he might start thinking about potentially surrendering some territories in favor of once again ceasefire. And one of the incentives that they might give the president of Ukraine is that his country will be ascended into the European Union at an accelerated time, potentially even NATO membership, or at least not the membership itself, but some kind of security guarantees from the alliance, at least for now. And unfortunately, this also affects the mindset of the Ukrainian people themselves. Once again, as of November, approximately 94% of Ukrainians, they did believe in the victory of Ukraine in this war, but only 68% 98% of them believed that this victory will come at the return of all of occupied territories. So as you can see, 1/3 of Ukrainians already does not believe that they will be able to return their own land. But according to Zelensky, who mentioned that he is the strongest believer in the Ukrainian victory, his position pretty much never changed. He said that not a single meter of Ukrainian land will be surrendered to the Russian Federation. He also mentioned that even Crimea will be returned, and there will be no peace talks until the borders are restored to its 1991 timeline. And obviously, the biggest part in all this and why Russian people are still not protesting, it is because of an incredibly strong propaganda. So let's quickly talk about right now the Russian side of this story, and then I'll give you my best case scenario vision for how Ukraine can get out of all of this. But before we continue, guys, if you don't mind, if you can help me with my work, can you please simply like this video and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. Thank you so much. This shows a lot of support to me, so thank you once again. So yes, why Russians, regular people, are not protesting? Once again, the answer is propaganda, incredibly strong one, just believe me. And even the strongest mindsets, they start to slowly fall into this debris, into this into this void. And this ignorance of people, unfortunately, is the greatest gift Putin can get. People just think that there is no point in protesting, according to them, because they alone, as they think, they simply will not change anything. And also at the same time, most importantly, they are afraid, and there is not a single person who can be named as the leader of the opposition. You probably thinking about Alexei Navalny right now, but unfortunately, as long as Putin in power, he will always be in jail. This lack of resistance is obviously unacceptable, but unfortunately it is understandable. Just imagine like 100 people with no weapons, nothing like this, which are only guarded by 5 guards with the guns. And in case these 100 people, they do start protesting, yes, they will be able to overpower just these 5 guys and take their weapons and take their power back. But guess what? Not a single one of these 100 people, they want to become martyrs, they want to sacrifice themselves, their lives, just for their comrades to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And this is pretty much exactly what is happening right now, unfortunately, with the Russian society. If all of them unite, they will be able to take their country back. Just no one wants to be that one single martyr who will give up everything he or she has, just for the sake of the brighter future of this entire country. I am pretty positive that vast majority of Russians will join these protests in case they begin and in case they start look promising, and their mindset will be like, I will not do anything right now, but if I see that yes, something is happening, yes, then of course I'll gladly join. And that is why, for now, the war continues. The mobilizations, either hidden one, partial, or even general in the future, will continue. Maybe even not one more, maybe it's gonna be multiple more. And even if one time mobilization will not be done perfectly and it will cause some unrest within the society, Putin will do what he does the best. He will do something what he used to do in the past and what always worked for him, at least for now, which is just to ignore everything. Ignore everything, pretend like nothing is happening, continue pushing the pro-war propaganda, keep going with your regular day-to-day lives, publicly humiliate and prosecute those against his regime, so people will not even once again think about going against Putin. And eventually, slowly but surely, the order will be restored. And then, when the time is right, another mobilization will be announced. Pretty much rinse and repeat, and you got yourself a society which is ready to support whatever you want, whatever you do. And once again, no one was ready for this. Pretty much a lot of people, they knew that Putin kinda does not care about his people, but no one even close expected how far he will go. And most importantly, no one still knows where he will stop. And that's unfortunately some pretty bad news for Ukraine, because in this case, in the words of Putin, he will be ready to fight against this country until the very last Ukrainian. Unless, obviously, something changes, preferably within Russia itself. But unfortunately and most likely, it will be at least initiated by the West with the hands of Ukrainians. And so right now, let's quickly talk about my own personal vision about the best case scenario for Ukraine out of this situation, and as you can see at this point, for Russian people themselves. And so yes, in my perfect vision, the West will tremendously increase the support to Ukraine, which will allow this country to push everywhere all at once, also including against Putin's beloved Crimea, pretty much the only thing in the entire life he cares about, also about his health and power. But this peninsula is something that can make him talk. As a result of this, Putin panics. He might start making some rash decisions, which might include invoking the actual martial law and general mobilization. And this is when, hopefully, the regular common people of Russia will understand that, okay guys, something is going wrong here. This is not what we sign up for. I'm not gonna die for Putin's regime. At this point, pretty much none of them they even know what is the purpose of this war anymore. And all of this will hopefully lead to some actual and fruitful protests, which will make Putin to completely shut down, or even just hide in one of his dozen bunkers, not replying, not responding to everyone, just fearing for his life. And this will be a perfect opportunity for Putin's inner circle, oligarchs, or some other power-hungry people to actually seize the power and maybe change at least a little bit the course of action. And honestly, yes, I do not deny the fact that their mindset might be pretty close to the one Putin has, but at least they will be most likely more cooperative, because they can always blame Putin for all the previous mistakes. So please guys, let me know in the comments if any of what I just said makes sense. Once again, I still support Ukraine, I'm on Ukrainian side, and I do believe in its ultimate victory. It just unfortunately might take way longer than first originally anticipated. And if you like this style of special videos, in addition to my daily episodes, once again, just please subscribe to my channel, it only takes one click. And if you wish to support my work and unlock some extra benefits, please go ahead and check my Patreon, starting only as little as $4 per month, and there's 1 week of free trial. The link is down below. Thank you so much my patrons for your support, and see you on Wednesday.